Roy Ayers, the legendary vibraphonist and composer, passed away on March 4, 2025, in New York City at the age of 84, following a prolonged illness. Roy Edward Ayers Jr. was born on September 10, 1940, in Los Angeles, California. Raised in the heart of a city where jazz was more than just music, it was a way of life, Ayers was destined for greatness. His father, Roy Sr., was a trombonist, and his mother, Ruby, played the piano and was a talented schoolteacher. But Roy's true calling came at the tender age of 5, when he was gifted a set of vibraphone mallets by the legendary Lionel Hampton. Little did anyone know, this moment would shape the course of jazz and funk history forever. As he grew up, Ayers was immersed in the sounds of jazz greats like Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, and Charlie Parker. His neighborhood, located near Central Avenue, was a melting pot of musical innovation, providing him with an environment where creativity thrived. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Roy Ayers honed his craft, performing with notable jazz musicians such as Curtis Amy and Teddy Edwards. His debut album, West Coast Vibes, released in 1963, showcased his early exploration of hard bop and straight-ahead jazz. But Roy wasn't content with just following the traditional path. He wanted to innovate. During the late 60s, Ayers' musical direction began to shift. He joined forces with the legendary jazz flautist Herbie Mann, playing on several of Mann's albums and touring internationally. This collaboration expanded Ayers' horizons, exposing him to different musical styles and cultures that would later influence his signature sound. The 1970s marked a defining period in Roy Ayers' career. He formed his own band, Roy Ayers Ubiquity, and delved into the fusion of jazz, funk, and soul. The word ubiquity means the state of being everywhere at once, which perfectly described Ayers' ever-present influence in music. In 1976, Ayers released Everybody Loves the Sunshine, an album that would forever solidify his place in music history. The title track, with its dreamy, sun-soaked melody and ethereal vocals, became an instant classic. The song captured the essence of summer, love, and nostalgia, making it a timeless anthem sampled by numerous hip-hop and R&B artists in the decades to come. Roy Ayers' music became a cornerstone for hip-hop producers and neo-soul artists, proving that his sound was truly ubiquitous. In 1980, Ayers took his musical journey even further, collaborating with Nigerian Afrobeat legend Fela Kuti. Together, they created the album Music of Many Colors, blending jazz funk with Afrobeat rhythms and socially conscious lyrics. This fusion of sounds was groundbreaking, further proving Ayers' ability to transcend musical boundaries. Even in his later years, Roy Ayers continued to perform, record, and inspire. His work was celebrated across generations, earning him the title of the Godfather of Neo-Soul. He worked with contemporary artists, ensuring that his legacy remained alive in modern music. Roy Ayers was a technically gifted jazz vibraphone player and multi-instrumentalist, but his greatest musical asset was probably his compositional sensitivity for finding and defining the groove. He had the skill to bring his jazz insights to R&B, funk, and soul, and ended up bridging the gap between bebop and pop, helping spawn the style known today as neo-soul. Everyone Loves the Sunshine, his 1976 pop song, became a soundtrack to summer and the sampled hook to countless hip-hop records. Roy Edward Ayers Jr. passed away in a Manhattan hospital at the age of 84. A family statement, released on Facebook, said, "It is with great sadness that the family of legendary vibraphonist, composer, and producer Roy Ayers announce his passing, which occurred on March 4, 2025 in New York City after a long illness." He grew up in a musical family in Los Angeles. His father played the trombone and his mother taught piano, his first instrument. When he was 5, his parents took him to see Lionel Hampton, the great jazz vibraphone player. So impressed was Hampton at the response to the concert by the 5-year-old that he gifted him a set of vibe mallets. Ayers is quoted in a 2011 Los Angeles Times interview as saying, "At the time, my mother and father told me he laid some spiritual vibes on me." Ayers sang in his local church choir and studied music at Thomas Jefferson High School in Los Angeles, which lays claim to Dexter Gordon and Charles Mingus among its distinguished jazz alumni. He formed his first band at high school, the Jefferson Combo, studied music theory at Los Angeles City College, and was taught by jazz vibraphonist Bobby Hutcherson, then heir apparent to Lionel Hampton. He played clubs while at college, began working professionally as a sideman in 1961, and in 1963 released his first album, the straight-swinging modern jazz set West Coast vibes. In 1966, he joined Herbie Mann's band, going on to make 11 albums with the celebrated flautist as a sideman on Vibes. Mann helped Ayers to get his first contract with Atlantic and produced 4 albums for Ayers on Atlantic and Columbia between 1967 and 1969. It was in the 1970s that Roy Ayers found his unique artistic and commercial voice and cemented his place in music history. On the back of the success of Ubiquity, his first album with new label Polydor in 1970, he formed a band of the same name, fine-tuning his sound on another 10 Polydor albums between 1970 and 1977 into a soulful and funky synthesis of vibraphone, keyboards, and vocals. Disco-bound tracks such as Running Away, Sweet Tears, Can't You See Me in Love Will Bring Us Back Together became dance classics, while sneaking hip bebop and modal jazz lines and solos into the popular sphere. Everybody Loves the Sunshine, released in 1976, was his breakthrough commercial record. As Ayers told The Guardian, it changed everything. In the UK, Ayers had already been picked up by the Northern Soul clubs in regional England. He was rapidly becoming a mainstay of London clubs and radio DJs, the latter attracted by his cool, mellow, and grooveful tunes. Everybody Loves the Sunshine became the soundtrack to the rare English summer treasure of golden days and evenings. Ayers has described the song as one of the most widely sampled in the music industry. This extraordinarily period of musical output in the 1970s helped define the evolution of jazz funk, acid jazz, and neo-soul. Also during the 70s, Ayers composed the critically acclaimed soundtrack to the seminal 1973 blaxploitation film Coffy and toured with Fela Kuti, founder of Afrobeat, in Nigeria. He went on to record the album Music of Many Colors in Nigeria in 1980. Ayers' influence continued into the 21st century through artists like Erykah Badu, who plays on Ayers' 2004 album Mahogany Vibes and describes Roy Ayers as the king of neo-soul. Betty Wright, also on Mahogany Vibes. Pharrell Williams, Jill Scott, D'Angelo, Tribe Called Quest, Dr. Dre, Common, Mos Def, Mary J. Blige, and The Creator, among many others. The Roy Ayers Connection is a documentary in production about the influence of Roy Ayers, status and release date unknown. I met Roy Ayers in 1992 when he was performing at the Blackpool Jazz Festival. I found him a remarkably warm and generous person. Rare example of an artist living up to the expectations created by their music and lyrics. He made you comfortable and welcome in his presence, maintaining a laudable mix of professionalism and selflessness in the way he approached performance, media, and fans. Despite hobbling around on a walking stick, having recently injured his knee, nothing was too much trouble. He was accommodating with studio-lit photographs backstage before the gig, and I was touched by the warmth and care he showed his wife, who accompanied him on tour. That set, from which the accompanying photograph was taken, was memorable. He played with style and verve, performing all his hit songs with a seemingly boundless energy, despite the requirement to remain seated at his vibraphone. I last saw Roy Ayers in a small Australian jazz club in Melbourne in 2015. He was as soulful as he always has been, but perhaps even more funky than I had remembered. There was also a new element of the sage and prescient philosopher. "Let your mind be free," he told a rapt crowd. "I'm just trying to give you music to let you look to the sky." But on March 4th, 2025, the world bid farewell to this musical genius. Roy Ayers passed away in New York City at the age of 84 after a prolonged illness. Though he is no longer with us, his music will forever be a part of our lives. Roy Ayers was more than just a musician. He was a pioneer, an innovator, and an inspiration to artists across all genres. His ability to blend jazz, funk, soul, and Afrobeat has left an indelible mark on music history. And though he may be gone, his sunshine will always shine in our hearts.